Good evening, everyone. You're listening to RedPill78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Hope everyone's having a lovely day, and I wanted to say Happy Easter to everyone. I hope you're enjoying this special time with your family and your loved ones and celebrating the return. Now, today I want to tell you about our guest that's going to be coming on the program to have a conversation with me. He is author and researcher Shaun Attwood. Shaun has many books, including a crime series on the war on drugs, including Clinton, Bush, and Clowns in America Conspiracies, American Made, Who Actually Killed Barry Seal, and the Cali Cartel, and it goes on and on. He's a very talented author, he's a very interesting guy, and we're going to be talking with him for about the next hour. So please, everyone, do sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsor. With ongoing shortages of gas masks around the world, Prepper's Peak wants to extend a special limited-time offer: the military issue M15 gas mask. Don't miss our limited-time offer on the military gas mask. Your health and well-being are the most important, so act accordingly. Invest today, and you won't regret tomorrow. The military gas mask was tested against a variety of chemical warfare agents, including GB and HD, and third-party testing provides you assurance that this respirator is effective against chemical warfare agents. With a limited supply, only the Israeli M15 gas mask is a must in every household. Don't miss your opportunity to purchase this mask while supplies last. You can get it at www.getagasmask.com. Once again, that's www.getagasmask.com. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My guest is author and YouTube personality Shaun Attwood. Shaun, how are you, buddy?
On top of the world, Zach. This is a luxury lockdown. Yeah. Having spent 6 years in the Arizona penitentiary, 26 months in Sheriff Joe Arpaio's jail system, where you are locked down and they can come in your cell day or night, big, bad, redneck guards, and yell, "Drop your trousers, spread them, and look at your bumhole." That is a lockdown. This is not a lockdown, and people are losing their minds.
Isn't it
insane?
Get
over it. Get over it. This is luxury. You've got Netflix. You've got Ozark season 3.
Great show.
Oh, man, it's Breaking Bad levels right now on that. I'm loving it. You've got all the time in the world to do things you've always wanted to do. Read those books you've always wanted to read. Get those yoga exercises going in the living room. Get your dance party going on, your house party going on.
Yep. It is a bit crazy the way that the world is reacting to this. I mean, what is it like in England? I mean, I've seen some videos of people setting cell phone towers on fire. I saw some footage of, I guess maybe it was a sewer that was on fire. It looks like it's almost approaching like Walking Dead levels of insanity.
There are a lot of conspiracy theories flourishing right now. Mm-hmm. And I don't claim to have any expertise in 5G. Just want to make that clear.
Okay.
I have tried to interview people with a range of perspectives. That's what my channel does. We're not just dogmatists. We're not just trying to all sing from the same hymn sheet and confirm each other's beliefs. Mm-hmm. And some people in the UK have been burning down the 5G towers. And there was a very controversial interview with David Icke on London Real. And it was like so watched. I mean, this thing, if they hadn't have bounced it off YouTube, it would have had 10 million views within days.
Yeah.
I've never seen a live stream like it. I was on the live stream and 64,000 people were watching the live stream. Mm. Then all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. And I did film with the London Real guys just a couple of weeks ago. I went to London. They sent a cab for me. Brian, brilliant guy. And congratulations to him on having all this success with David Icke. But man, that is a fine line he's walking right there with these YouTube people. And a lot of YouTubers now have got to be very cognizant of what's happening.
Absolutely. We have to be very, very careful in the way that we present things. And that's one of the things that I like about your channel. I mean, you tend to bring in people who have, some level of authority, even if they don't necessarily agree with you. And you put out some incredible content. But how did you get to this point right here? I mean, you started out as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed coming from England to America, and you had a very, very different path initially.
From a little town in between Liverpool and Manchester that is a chemical manufacturing town, so I didn't grow up with much money. When I was a kid, I had an unnatural interest in the stock market. Age 14, my economics teacher is giving me classes on my own. At age 16, I'm already trading the stock market, and I was even trading the options market. And it was actually the 9/11 insider options trading that woke me up to how the world is really operates, how things aren't as they seem. But we could get to that later on if you want, because people
Sure.
have asked me about the insider trading prior to coronavirus. I can explain how that works if you're interested.
Please.
I've looked at your videos, Zach, and I see that you do cover a lot of the business side of it and how people are potentially profiting from this situation. So, yeah, I'm this child stock market protege, go to uni in Liverpool, get my business studies degree. Now, as a teenager, I've been visiting my aunts in Arizona, and coming from the industrial north of England where it's rainy and, all of a sudden your plane's coming into land in Arizona, there's swimming pools in the backyards. They hear the English accent, they roll out the red carpet. When I was 16, my aunt changed my date of birth on my passport, so I was 21. took me out nightclubbing in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
And she introduced me to all these beautiful Arizonians as Paul McCartney's nephew. So I'm just a nobody, from my little town, and all of a sudden I'm Paul McCartney's nephew. I want some of this when I finish uni. So that's what I did. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a visitor's visa. I came on the banana boat, flew over with my student credit cards. I was an illegal alien stockbroker. It was commission only. First brokerage I was with was a penny stock brokerage. This is the 90s. This is Wolf of Wall Street style.
Uh-huh.
You've got to have a mirror on your desk. Smiling breakers make more money. 24-foot curly cord. Brokers who are pacing make more money. Power meetings. You are only as big as your numbers are on this board for the month. If you're taking a lunch break, lunch is for wimps. If you're calling your wives, your girlfriends, other brokers are calling your clients. It was just like the drill sergeant mentality that you saw in Wolf of Wall Street. Wow. So, baptism of fire in that. I'm fresh out of uni. I'm in an office with mostly macho Italian New Yorkers. They're snorting coke and crystal meth off the desk. Strippers are coming up to the office. Limos are downstairs waiting for us with strippers in them to take us to the clubs. And this is what I'm thinking. This is how the business world is in America. This was my indoctrination.
Wow.
So I'm not complaining here. I was buzzing off it.
Oh, I bet.
I've always loved the American people for being so outgoing and wild and loud versus, you got this stereotype of the reserved English.
Mm-hmm.
And me being a party animal, I made a lot of really good friends in America over the years, but sadly, more than half of them are dead now because of the high-risk lifestyles that they were pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
So for 5 years, I'm working diligently as a stockbroker, go from living off cheese sandwiches and bananas, worried I'm going to have to come home, to grossing $500,000 a year in commissions. I'm the top guy in the office. And then I'm thinking, right, do I want to come in for the rat race? Got to be up at 5 a.m, 6 o'clock in the morning, sales meeting. Stock market opens, 3 hours earlier than New York here. Or I could just start making money from the party scene. And before I went full-on party scene, I was still a stockbroker. And I got 1,000 ecstasy pills out of LA. my best mate had flown over this big guy, a maniac called Wildman. And he's living in this apartment complex in Tempe, Arizona, Rancho Murrieta. And in the beginning, I was just showing off, giving away pills for free because I've got all this money, fragile ego, attracting friends. You give pills away for free, you make a lot of friends real fast.
Real fast.
Then greed takes over. All right, there's business potential here. Arbitrage opportunity. Exley's going for 25, 30 in the clubs. Get them around 10 to 12 out of LA. And then in the end, I had it structured like a corporation, about 200 people working for me, got heads of each faction, crime family dinner every month for the heads of the faction. If people get arrested, they've got legal benefits to get a lawyer assigned to them. We bail them out so they won't snitch. We're a very tight-knit community. And that's shown because when we got arrested, Sammy the Bull's crew, he was my competitor in the XC market, underboss of the Gambino crime family, murdered almost 24 people. His son later on told me in prison he'd been dispatched one night to kidnap me from a nightclub and take me out to the desert. And the only reason we'd missed those guys is because Wildman had got in a situation and we'd had to leave that club in a hurry. So those guys were my competitor. They got arrested a year or two before I did by the same authorities. And I think he had 57 co-defendants and they all snitched straight away. I had over 100 co-defendants. And only 4 agreed to snitch.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty good ratio. Now,
we were a close-knit family of misfits.
I mean, that's pretty impressive. Now, Sammy the Bull, at that time, wasn't he already, in witness protection, or hadn't he gone?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that makes me... how was he able to operate like that?
Oh, my goodness. He had testified against Gotti, and he was the highest-ranking member of the Mafia as an underboss to ever get up in court and do all these testimonies. Now, he just got interviewed by Patrick over at Valuetainment.
Okay.
And props out to Patrick. He's done a great job. I worked with him, done stuff with him over the years. And that one went viral, got like 5 or 6 million. Wow. And Sammy's saying that he took the ecstasy charges because his lawyer told him to take those charges versus more serious charges. But he wasn't really that involved in the running of it. His son was definitely involved in the running of it. And I'm not sure about the daughter's extent. His son, I think, got 9 or 10 years for it. Sammy got 15 years for it. And what happened was they put him in witness protection in Tempe, Arizona. And I had the local ecstasy market locked down. Then all of a sudden, there were these big steroid head jock dudes showing up at the clubs selling ecstasy in the polyester leopard print shirts. I'm thinking, who are these guys? They don't quite fit in with our clique.
Not locals.
And then I was married to a bisexual woman. She was very intelligent, university graduate, but she was doing lesbian internet porn when I met her. And one of her lovers was dating one of these steroid head guys. And through the women, they brokered a meeting. And I was curious.
Wow.
I'm thinking, all right, I'll go and meet these guys, find out what they're about. I had no idea about Sammy the Bull at this point. So we go to a bar in Tucson, Arizona, Heart 5. There's 2 of them. One's called the Spaniard. There's this massive guy called Mark, 6 foot something, His biceps are bigger than my head. I've got one of my bouncers with me, Rossetti, one of the Rossetti brothers. He's packing a pistol. He's watching out for me. They don't know he's in there. So they take me through to this back room, and they start saying, look, English Shaun, we know, you've been in the business for years, and you've got a lot of connections, and you're doing good. We're getting our pills at a certain price. We think we could do you a better deal. Why don't you start buying your pills through us? Now, I was aware that importing tens of thousands of ecstasy pills, potentially somebody could die. Ecstasy, it's very rare that someone dies from it, but it can happen if they have a medical condition or if there's a toxic substance in the pill. If there's a festival and the news says a bunch of people died from ecstasy, that's not ecstasy because that many people can't possibly die.
Right.
It's because of these toxic substances in the pill. So there's a website called Dance Safe, and I bought testing kits because I couldn't go out and get the pills from Holland. I had to send people. And these testing kits turn that pill like a purple-blue color. then you know you got a good quality pill.
Mm-hmm.
Should be 100, 125 milligrams of MDMA in clay, like a beige speckled pill. Looks good. So Sammy the Bull's crew had colored pills that they were offering me.
Mm-hmm.
And my response was, I've got a reputation for having good quality pills. You've got those colored pills. I'd rather stick with my own. And the big guy, the steroid head, jumps up and goes, who the F do you think you are, disrespecting our pills? Don't you effing know who we work for? One call to Sammy the Bull and we can have you taken out to the desert.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't know if he was full of baloney or what, but I knew about Sammy the Bull from the news, and he was a heavy character. Now, I wondered how long the peace would last, and what happened was my top sales guy, Skinner, they lured him to a nightclub in Scottsdale under the pretext of doing a deal, took him to the men's room, knocked his teeth out, took all of his pills, all his money, his gun and everything. And that's when things started to get heavy. And I do talks to kids now, and I tell them, you know, you think it's fun, you think it's cool. I thought I was Mr. Cool Guy living in $1 million house on the side of a mountain. And drugs do start out like that at first, but it puts you on that path and you cross over into the dark side of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said to you, more than half my friends from back then are dead. And that's not from natural causes. That's because of the high-risk lifestyle they chose. So when Sammy the Bull's people knocked the teeth out of Skinner, I thought, all right, my shield is the heads of the factions below me. Yeah, there's all these levels below them of middlemen and street peddlers. But once that shield gets penetrated, I'm next at the top of that pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved over 100 miles to Tucson in a neighborhood in the mountains there, Sin Vacas. Most beautiful place I've ever lived in my life. There's like deer at the mailbox and stuff, all kinds of wildlife. When the thunderstorms and the monsoon rain, a little stream would form by the house with a waterfall. It was honestly this gorgeous place, mountains of Tucson, Catalina Mountains. Paul McCartney lived along the range there. And
Paul.
yeah. And Joe Bonanno Sr. of the Bonanno crime family, retired mafia boss. He was the longest running head of the Mafia Council, never got whacked. He was up there as well. And to get into that neighborhood, you had to go to a guard at a gate with a barrier, and he would call the house, and you couldn't even get into that neighborhood unless someone from that house authorized the car to get into that neighborhood.
So safe.
So that's for my safety then, with the shit rising with Sammy the Bull, I had to get out of Phoenix. But I did have the protection of the New Mexican Mafia at that time, and they were far more dangerous than the people that Sammy the Bull was running around with.
Now, the New Mexico Mafia, when you say that, who was comprised of that organization? Because there is an organization that we've spoken about many times on the channel before, the Arizona Mafia, which is essentially the Democratic elite and intelligentsia there in Arizona, people like Janet Napolitano and her lieutenants working with the cartels from south of the border.
And the private prison industries as well. That's how they make so much money. It's just one big shakedown on the taxpayers. I've said it before, the taxpayers' money is a feeding trough. Mm-hmm. And whoever's in power gets to dole that money out and get a chunk of it right back in legal bribery called political contributions. Mm-hmm. Get your snout in that trout at the taxpayers' expense. And the problem with coronavirus is all that taxpayers' money that was getting doled out in those contracts, all those financial equations have been thrown out the window. Mm-hmm. So now that same political mafia are having to rejig the reasons to get the snouts back in the trout. So they come up with all these things now, how they're helping the people just to get that taxpayer money and put it in their own pockets. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the political mafia are the most powerful. Wow. Well, no, I would say the enforcement arm of the political mafia is the CIA. Mm-hmm. I've written extensively. I've got a War on Drugs book series. American Made is a book I wrote about a CIA cocaine flying pilot called Barry Seal.
I'm familiar.
And my book that I came out in December was Clinton, Bush, and CIA conspiracies from the boys on the tracks of Jeffrey Epstein. And my book that's coming out this year is Who Killed Jeffrey Epstein? I'm going to have a picture of Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton on the front cover. Yeah.
It's probably pretty close to the truth. So once you moved away, how long was it before that you ended up getting busted, and how did that happen?
So I arrived in America in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
And the SWAT team came May 16, 2002. And I'd met a woman, fallen in love. She taught me out the trafficking. And I'd stopped. I hadn't imported anything. And I was naive to the statute of limitations. I thought the cops had to catch you with a stash of drugs.
No, yeah.
All it takes is someone from your past to tell the police they've done a deal with you and they've got you. It's a conspiracy. They've got a witness. And there was 10 witness statements. So I was back to stock market trading. I was in college studying Spanish. And I was on my computer that morning. And that's when the SWAT team came.
Wow. So you hadn't even been dealing anymore. You had stopped, went back to stock trading?
Yeah.
Wow.
But the investigation into me had been going on for about 5 years. My nemesis, Detective Reed, when he came in, when the SWAT people put us down, he just yanked me up by the cuffs. He's like, English Shaun, you're a big name from the rave scene. We finally got you. And when there was thousands of pages of police paperwork. And when I'm reading it all, this guy had been on my tail for ages. In restaurants, I'd be sat in a restaurant, I'd be on the next table, listening to me.
Oh my God.
Following me around. I'd be losing him in my sports car. Twin turbo Mazda RX-7 out of Fast and Furious 1. And then he'd go whining to the judge, we can't keep up with this guy, he drives so fast, give us a wiretap. Let's put a satellite navigation device on his vehicle. And that's how they got me in there. I remember it was dawning on me. I'd just been to I did a kickboxing class. I just did about 6 months of kickboxing. I'm glad I did before I went to Arizona before the SWAT team came. And subconsciously, I must have known to do Spanish with the big Spanish prison population and kickboxing. The other thing, though, was I had my back, laser hair removal on my back, and the woman said, why don't you get your arse done as well? And I was like, yeah, my arse is quite hairy, but if I ever get arrested, it might be a defensive shield, dropping the soap in the shower and all that. And I was joking. And then the SWAT team came about a couple of weeks later. So I did have that defensive shield, fortunately. I held on very tightly to that soap. And I get asked that a lot. And sometimes when the adults ask me, not the school kids, I say, I dropped that soap so many times, but I never managed to get lucky.
Oh, thank God.
What was the question again? We're going off on the soap now.
So after you got arrested, how long did the trial last? I mean, was it a very lengthy process? Did you lose everything in that meantime, or were you able to continue working?
All right, so I'm the head of a conspiracy now, and there's hundreds of people involved. And they're arresting us all in groups. And it takes over a year just to arrest everybody.
Wow.
And every month you go to court and your hopes are raised and then they're dashed. And it was 26 months before I managed to get sentenced. I was facing a maximum of 200 years.
Wow.
2 or 3 months in, prosecutors slapped a serious drug offender status on me, which carried 25 to life. And then in the second year, they want everybody to break down and sign a plea bargain. The jail system is a conveyor belt to the private prison system. If you go to trial, that's cost the state money, and they will hang you upside down. They will give you the super aggravated maximum sentence just to show everybody else.
Sure.
If you dare go to trial, this is what's going to happen to you. So a guy was offered a plea bargain for 15 years in a case similar to mine. And he was like, that's too much. I'm not going to sign. I'm going to go to trial. And they gave him 200. And the prosecutor then said, we're going to do exactly the same thing to Atwood if he doesn't sign a plea bargain after 26 months. That's what happened. Now, a plea bargain isn't snitching. It's just you get up in front of the judge and you say, I am guilty to doing these crimes. And 98% of the cases in Arizona, people sign plea bargains. Prosecutor hated me because I refused to cooperate. She stopped my girlfriend from visiting me. who was my lifeline. In the second year, she charged my girlfriend with a prescription pill found on the day of the raid. It didn't have a written prescription next to it, which is a class 6 felony. Criminalized my girlfriend, and then co-defendants can't visit co-defendants. To stop me from influencing my co-defendants, they doubled my bail bond after a year to 1.5 million, so I was moved over to maximum security. And even after I got sentenced, the final farewell was she accidentally put my 9.5-year sentence down as 34 years. So I was fast-tracked to Supermax, where it wasn't even supposed to be.
Wow.
Yes.
So you during the trial, during the time of waiting, that's when you were in Maricopa County?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. All right.
Sheriff Joe Pio's Maricopa County jail system.
And Sheriff Joe has kind of been a very divisive figure here in America. You know, he's either loved or he's hated. I think anybody who's had to serve time under him most definitely doesn't appreciate the way he does things. But the people who like him, he tends to use the money creatively. He has the prisoners do some unusual things. Definitely hard labor. He's got them living in tents. I mean, were you actually inside of a jail, or were you in one of those tent cities that we've seen on the news?
Okay, the tent city, the Korean War tents. They're for short timers and people on low. I think some people have got very low sentences or very low security classifications. So I was more in the higher level classification. Now, Sheriff Joe has turned law enforcement into Hollywood entertainment, but behind the veneer, he created the most dangerous environment, the most dangerous piece of real estate in America during his reign, because Locked Up Abroad did an episode on me, National Geographic Channel. They researched it. Over 5 years, 62 people died in that jail around the time I was there. And yeah, some of those were murdered by like the Aryan Brotherhood gang members, but some of them were mentally ill people murdered by the guards.
Oh, wow.
I've got videos of guards murdering mentally ill people in that jail on my YouTube channel. Brian Crenshaw was a partially blind shoplifter, failed to produce his ID. They pulverized him, broke his neck, severe internal injuries.
Wow.
He went into a coma, died over a month later. Scott Norberg, mentally ill man wandering a neighborhood. They brought him in. Guards started to beat him up and electrocute him with tasers. A female guard tried to stop it. Stop beating him, his face has turned blue. They pushed her off, they kept beating him. After he was dead, the prisoners started yelling, "Why are you still beating him? He's already dead. His face has turned blue."
Oh, my gosh.
And they were like a pack of wolves. They couldn't stop themselves beating this corpse. They just could not stop themselves beating a lifeless person. Yeah. So, you know, this goes to the debate of punishment versus education. Is this disco dancing cowboy doing the taxpayers any good, Sheriff Joe, or is he causing massive lawsuits? When I was there, he paid out 50 million, well, the top 5 jails combined, and there was over 50 million more pending. So it was a huge disaster for the taxpayers because of all of these lawsuits. Now, people, you know, you say about people love and hate. I'm a yoga practicing person who believes in karma. I try and understand where people are coming from. I don't hate Sheriff Arpaio. People ask me, did you hate Arpaio? No. And analyzing his life, his mom died giving birth to him. So I think he lacked a maternal empathy bond, and the jail became the projection of his suffering. Now, if you go back to earlier in his career, he worked under a guy called Harry Anslinger. And even in his older years, he had a photo of Harry Anslinger up on his wall. Harry Anslinger is the reason that the whole world has got its drug laws. He was brought in to demonize and criminalize drugs at the federal level before the state laws were enacted. And Harry Anslinger, big-time racist, his thing was a black man or a Mexican on cocaine or weed will want to rape every white woman in sight. And the main reason for making these drugs illegal is their effect on the degenerate races.
Wow.
So that's the guy who Sheriff Joe Arpaio idolized.
So how involved on a day-to-day basis was Sheriff Joe in the running of that jail? I mean, would he come through and speak to people, or would he be directing these guards? I mean, I want to know where these guards are getting that bloodlust from.
People I talked to who were in the know said Arpaio was so old by then, he was just like a figurehead, bordering on senility. But he had very powerful henchmen right below him. Now, why would guards want to beat the life, not the life because the person was dead, why would one of guards beat a corpse senseless?
Mm-hmm.
That's because if you study neuroscience, what we think throughout the day is governed by our rational part of our mind. But once we get into a situation of violence, the amygdala and these other parts of the brain start to kick in and flood the brain with these chemicals that turn us into animals.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at these videos on my channel of the guards, there's one where the guard walks up to this guy, ex-military. He's more than half of my friends in jail were ex-military. Mm-hmm. They come back from these wars. They got PTSD. They don't get any help from the government. They end up self-medicating on drugs and end up in the prison system. It's really sad. Mm-hmm. Before I got arrested, I thought prisoners, lock them up for a way to key. They're pedophiles, rapists, drug traffickers. Not making an excuse for what I did. But I got in there and I saw the average arrest was like a black kid or a Mexican kid with a bit of weed, getting like a 2 to 5 year sentence. It was the biggest house of the mentally ill. So my heart opened and I wanted to start exposing what was going on. Now, why would guards do these things? There's this massive us versus them mentality in prison. And once the guards start on someone, those parts of the brain kick in and they turn into animals. On this video I'm talking about that's on my channel, the military guy, he's got his back to a wall. He's not hitting anyone. I don't know what he's saying. And one guard just steps forward, grabs him, throws him down. And one or two of them just start getting on him, beating him and tasing him. And then they all get in on him. And it just becomes this motion like a pack of wolves. Mm-hmm. And you can see they've just turned into complete animals and they can't stop themselves.
Wow, that's horrible.
Let me ask you this, then. Yeah. Those cases were caught on camera. Family members of the victims of the guards went to court, federal court, and sued for compensation. What do you think Sheriff Joe did to some of the guards who were found responsible in federal court for murdering those prisoners?
I mean, I would assume they would probably be fired. I mean, you can't, if you're going to have people watching over criminals and you know, safeguarding them essentially, and because I mean, you can go in for a 2 to 5 year sentence. Obviously, you're hoping that you're going to get out. But if people are that insane, I mean, there's a certain level of psychopathy if you're going to be beating people to death. So yeah, I would expect that they wouldn't be working there anymore.
Gave him promotions and pay rises.
Oh man, that's really bad.
Yeah.
Not what I would expect. You know, and I hope that there's going to be some people watching this that are not going to like the idea that there's anything improper that Sheriff Joe did. Because for a long time, he was seen as, and I think to many still, he is seen as kind of a hero to the conservative movement because he stood up to our former president, Barack Obama. And he paid a heavy price as a result of it. So it's very ironic that you know, this is the way it was. It's crazy to hear it from the point of view of somebody who was in there.
Yeah, there's good and bad in everybody. I learned that in prison, and you know, I ended up getting protected by a guy later on, 2 Tonys, Mafia, multiple homicide murderer, 741 years. He'd left the dead bodies of rival gangsters from Arizona to Alaska. He worked for the Bonanno crime family. And under the old school Mafia code, never harmed women or kids. And because he had only murdered rival gangsters, he's top of the respect in the prison. He dictated his life story to me. And so in some interviews, people have said, how can a peace-loving guy like you from the rave scene have a relationship with a guy who's a multiple homicide murderer? Mm-hmm. 2 Tony said that by the end of it, he felt like I was the son that he never had. Oh. What I say is, I learned in prison there's good and bad in everybody. And if you focus on the good, it helps it to come out.
Absolutely. Yeah, the world is not so black and white. I mean, you have to be able to see things as, a shade or a spectrum. So how long did you actually spend in prison? You said 26 months, or that was just the time that you were waiting for the
Oh
trial
yeah,
to
that was
complete?
just getting started. That was just that was just in Sheriff Joe Pile's hellhole.
Okay.
So I end up serving just under 6 total.
6 years. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I
Oh,
did
wow.
lucky. I got lucky
Yeah.
because I got the lawyer that the New Mexican Mafia recommended to me, and he's a loophole lawyer, and as a first-time nonviolent drug offender who was on. They got me a loophole because I was not a U.S. citizen. That was it. I wasn't a U.S. citizen. So I did get sentenced to 9.5 years, but he only ended up serving 5 3/4.
Okay.
And that cost a lot of money. If you don't have money, if I didn't have money, and it wasn't my money, my parents came up with the money.
Oh, wow.
They remortgaged the house. If they didn't come up with that 100 grand, I'd still be in prison right now. In America, you get what justice you can afford. And that's why the cops, when they're doing their arrest quotas, they go to the most disadvantaged neighborhoods. I heard one cop say, I just go to the black neighborhood, make drug arrests. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. They have arrest quotas. They don't want the people fighting back. They want them in that pipeline to prison. Everybody gets arrested, $50,000 a year of taxpayers' money per prisoner to the prison. If they're arresting rich white kids, they may be related to politicians or judges or prosecutors. These guys have the resources to fight back. So the prison industrial complex and the war on drugs perpetuates itself by cannibalizing the most disadvantaged people in society.
It's really a shame, the level of corruption that we have here in America. And, it's pretty much endemic all across the globe at this point. And this is one of the reasons that I really like President Trump. I'm a huge fan because it seems like things are starting to get cleaned up from the ground up. And, I don't know if you've seen, but there's been quite a few arrests of local politicians from Chicago to Baltimore to Pittsburgh, and there's also been some movement within police departments. There are many police officers who are here to protect the people and serve, and anytime you have somebody like the people you were just talking about that will target people and put them into the system just for the quota, just for the money, gives everybody a bad name. So I want to know some more about some of the people that you befriended when you were in prison. And you said that you had the one, Two Tonys, he had dictated his life story to you. I mean, how many people that you befriended did you dictate their stories, or did you write anything about?
All right, so Two Tonys dictated his life story. He came into the Bonanno crime family under Charlie Bats Battaglia, who was a whacker of gangsters, and he disposed of people and whacked people from coast to coast and never got caught. So Two Tonys comes in, fresh to this business. Bats is the stereotype out of a movie like The Godfather. He's got the Antony and Cleopatra cigar and the pinky ring and the hair swept back and the suit, the three-piece suit. And Two Tonys is in absolute awe of Charlie Bats Battaglia. But over time, the tables were turned, and I wasn't supposed to be in Two Tonys' cell. Cell visiting was prohibited, so I'm in there every day. He's got prisoners watching for guards. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole chapter in the book where Two Tonys is telling me all the methods that Battaglia taught him to murder people and to dispose of corpses. Two Tonys whacked people in Arizona, whacked people in Alaska. Bodies that were thrown away in Alaska had problems because it was so cold. They were hoping that the birds would eat them, mm-hmm. and that they just were frozen and preserved versus the heat, can make the body rot much faster. Mm-hmm. And when he was burying bodies, they dig like really deep, bury the corpse, put dirt on top of it, and then put a dead animal on top of that. Mm-hmm. So if a cadaver dog comes out and hits for that spot, they find the dead animal and they stop digging. Mm-hmm. But no crime family, that was, whacking people on an industrial scale, the mafia. So they just invested in funeral homes and they had double-decker coffins.
Oh, wow.
And if people are interested in reading that book, sadly, Two Tonys did not live long enough to see its publication. But it's called The Mafia Philosopher, Two Tonys, and it is on Amazon worldwide.
And we've actually got the link to all of your books in the description below this video. Yeah, yeah. So when you get out of prison, what was life like? You had to completely start over. Obviously, they didn't let you stay here in America.
So right now, I'm doing a series of videos: lockdown, self-isolation, survival advice from ex-cons.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some of the advice, and people who are on my true crime podcast, I've interviewed some of those guys as well. And what I'm telling people is, when this lockdown ends, you are going to get a taste, perhaps a fraction of it, but a taste of the first day of freedom that is sensed by an ex-prisoner. Now, my deportation was quite convoluted. I had to go from prison in Arizona to a deportation camp, federal facility in Arizona, to Connor across California, and Arizona and California. It was mostly Mexicans who were being deported.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was flown from LA back to London. So I've not slept in days. I'm so excited. My mom, dad, sister are at the airport. And there's actually a bit of video footage of me. I look really bugged out. I've got like all this stubble. You can see I've been through something. A bit shell-shocked. And just being able to hug my mom, though, my sister, and they're crying. And they took me for Indian food right away. And being able to just walk down the street and buy a banana was the height of ecstasy for me.
I bet. And
people are going to feel some of that when they get off the lockdown. Don't sweat it. It's going to end. And these things have happened before. The Spanish flu. We'll get over it. We'll move on. And that feeling of being a free man was like being on drugs. But it only lasts for so long before things fall back into place, kind of. Mm-hmm. It did me so good. I've not gone back to the person that I was. I don't do drugs anymore. I don't even drink alcohol.
Good.
To Tony's, one of his favorite books was A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. They're working these guys to death in the gulag under Stalin. If you refuse to work, you are dragged to death by horse, thrown off a cliff, or hung from a tree. Mm-hmm. They're losing their fingers, the noses, the toes, the ears to frostbite. And to Tony's, when anyone would complain where we were housed, breakfast was cold, recreation didn't start on time. Two Tonys would laugh at them and say, look, where Ivan Denisovich was housed in the Siberian gulag, they were fighting over fish eyeballs in the soup just to try and stay alive. Oof. How can you complain when there's always somebody worse off? So I do generally wake up with a smile on my face. You know, I'm free. I'm in the West. All these horrible things going on around the world that you see. I know there's a lot going on around the world, even in our own countries now, because of what's happening. Mm-hmm. But prior to that, you know, war-torn areas and landslides, mudslides, volcanoes, all these, you know, these people suffering displacement, and it's just horrific. You see these videos of them. So we really got it good in the West when the situation is in the normal conditions. There's no more dead rats in my food. There's no more cockroaches in my bed like was in the jailhouse. And Tony's taught me to appreciate the small things. And when you do appreciate the small things, you don't go looking for trouble in all the wrong places. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm here and people are going crazy on the lockdown. I've got a big bag of monkey nuts. I just throw monkey nuts off the balcony to the squirrels. At night, I'm watching the badger and the fox have a standoff over a piece of bread. And in Arizona, I hadn't noticed the beauty of nature until my incarceration. Mm-hmm. Arizona's, you know, it's amazing. When I was in Tucson, they've got little prairie dogs. They've got toads flopping around. They've got the tarantulas that come out in the mating season. Mm-hmm. And all these things, you know, we're all running through our lives at such a fast pace. We're going to have all these material things, you know. I've got to spend all these hours doing all this work. When we're on our deathbeds, what are we going to look back at? We're going to look back at all the hours we did all this work. No, We're going to look at the time we took out to enjoy life with our family and friends, and how we influenced other people and helped other people and appreciated the small things. I think that message is more important than ever right now for all these people wigging out because they're going through the stress of being locked down.
I absolutely agree. Now, so since you've come out of prison, how many books have you published?
I just finished my 13th book yesterday.
Good.
And that one won't be published for a while. So there's 12 officially published. That was part of my Pablo Escobar box set. It's called Pablo Escobar's Story. It's a 4-book series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's his story translated from everything that's been written about him in Spanish.
Wow.
So it's completely different from what's been written about him in the English-speaking world. Parts 1 and 2 are already out. Part 3 will probably be out in about 3 to 6 months. And I've just started now on my next book, Who Killed Jeffrey Epstein. If people are interested in my life story, it's Party Time, all the naughty stuff I did. Hard Time, the sheriff chose jail, and Prison Time afterwards. And I've also got a War on Drugs series of books, like American Made, Cali Cartel, and I write about the Bush and Clinton crime families as well.
Excellent, excellent. And then as far as helping other people, you mentioned that you do talks to young people to try to help them stay out of a life of drugs and crime.
I saw the horror of what drug use led to in the jail. 90% of the prisoners injecting heroin and crystal meth, 2/3 hepatitis C from sharing dirty needles, yellow jaundice skin, teeth rotting out. And it made me ashamed of putting people on that road of drug use. When I was on the drugs, it put a cloud in my head. I didn't know what the scrambled my decision-making processes. I just thought I was Mr. Cool Guy keeping the party going. Seeing the horror made me ashamed, and I resolved to try and influence the younger generation. I knew I couldn't change my past. So I do over 100 talks a year right now, schools and colleges. One kid, she was so inspired. She went on to do a criminology degree. Her parents invited me to the graduation. I had a meal with them. I never know how the talks are impacting kids. On my Twitter, all the likes are feedback coming in from the kids. And like I said, I do yoga, and I'm hoping that's going to balance out the harm I cause society by trafficking that ecstasy. And I take full responsibility for putting myself in the grueling in jail conditions. I've not come here to whine about any of that today.
Well, I got to say, I love your attitude about the whole thing. I think many people in your position would have just been jaded and angry, and certainly wouldn't have used it to do such positive things to have an impact on society. So
Thanks,
excellent stuff. Yeah, yeah. So what does the future hold for Shaun Attwood? You have a couple things going on right now. So you have a true crime podcast. You also have the YouTube channel. Tell me about that.
When I got out of prison, a lot of guys were already established. People have been to prison, some of them, like Howard Marks, Mr. Nice, Erwin James, here in the UK, a lifer. They helped me come up in the world. And my channel in the beginning, my prison stories, I've had the channel for must be about 10 plus years now. And I thought, right, I've got to start to help other guys get their stories out there who are coming out. First one was a guy called Jamie Morgan Kane, served 34 years in California for a crime he hadn't committed. And while he was in prison, he'd learned he was born on the Isle of Man. So he got deported back to the UK, and he knew absolutely nobody.
Oh, wow.
And that video went so viral. It's over 1 million views on that video, but there's one clip I did out of it. It's got almost 6 million views. And he got a book deal. And it's nice to be able to have a platform to help people come up in the world. My true crime podcast started out interviewing ex-cons, then ex-cops, and now journalists. We're on the forefront of crime stories like Jimmy Savile, Epstein, Prince Andrew. So it's really evolved. And, you know, my motto when I was a teenager, I'd watch Wall Street, Greed is Good, Gordon Gekko. Got to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. I put all that stress on my system. Yeah, I did it. But I burnt out. I self-destructed. I went down that dark path of drugs and addiction, and had to rebuild my life from scratch. Prison forced me to mature as a person and come out somebody else. So now I'm just seeing where it's all going. I don't have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. I don't think like the Chinese anymore. I used to tell people when I was a teenager, I'm like the Chinese. I think so long term. I've got this plan. I'm going to do this and this. But now I just wake up, smile on my face, throw some monkey nuts to the squirrels, get my breakfast cooked, get on my computer, do my work, and just thank, I'm just so thankful that everything's going great. Everything is going absolutely great. I'm loving this luxury lockdown. It's a time for reflection and introspection, and it's a reminder to me of the discipline that I had in prison that I dropped, because you go through various stages of adaptation. In the beginning, you're in shock. I'm getting used to the sounds of heads getting bashed against toilets, bodies getting thrown around. Prisoners are coming up to me saying, "Get that look off your face, that's going to get preyed on." 6 months later, I've got dead eyes. You can't show any sign of weakness or it's going to get exploited. But inside, you're still feeling it. Your adrenaline, is going like crazy. But by the end of it, Two Tonys was laughing. He said, you are running a business out yourself with your blogging and your writing. All these prisoners getting pen pals out of it. Books getting sent in. We were filling the prison library. It was like Shawshank Redemption moments. So that discipline, to an extent, I dropped it. I had a workout partner, a personal trainer in prison called Iron Man. And now I can feel it. All my prison techniques are coming right back. Mm-hmm. And for people who are stressed out on lockdown, what I say is find someone who's been in prison and ask them about it, because the prison population's got a wealth of knowledge right now that can really help the average person deal with the situation.
Absolutely. Now, how were you able to blog from inside the prison?
What happened there was my aunt, and she's dead right now, she visited me in maximum security in the Madison Street Jail, Phoenix, Arizona, 2004. And in these max security visits, the visitor comes in a cubicle behind a plexiglass screen. One hand is, my cubicle is chained to a desk, and my other hand is holding a phone. So I can't hand anything to my aunt. Mm-hmm. But I could release personal property to my aunt from the visitation officer. What that means is legal paperwork, old books, letters. So the way I started writing things down was using a golf pencil. Mm-hmm. If you're in England and watching this, that's like a betting shop pencil. Mm-hmm. That was sharpened on the door. I was allowed paper, and it's so hot in there, 50 degrees in the Sonoran Desert in the summer. That's the UK scale, so that's 120 somewhere on the American scale.
Wow.
The first pieces of paper that was smuggled out by my aunt, they're like all scrunchy to this day because they were just sweat soaked from me just writing, and just all the sweat just dripping off me. Now, you have to fill out what's called a tank order that you get from a guard to request to do a property release. The guard's got to take it, sergeant's got to sign off on it, and you get a copy, and you do the penguin shuffle, and all your chains, your max security chains, your belly chain, your ankle chains. You do the penguin shuffle up to visitation, holding your property. And those things I've written are hidden in those letters. And then the guard, the visitation guard, he's got them on his desk for the 30-minute visit. So I'm talking to my aunt through the plexiglass on the phone, looking over at the guard station, seeing if he's going to search through it. Now, the guards are trained to look for contraband, mm-hmm. which means syringes, cash, drugs, weapons. So he's not thinking, somebody's written something down in this pile of mail. So I didn't get busted, but my heart was going like crazy for the whole that 30 minutes. At the end, my aunt goes to the end of the hall. The guard comes out the end of the hall, handed her that pile of property, and she took that home, typed it up, emailed it to my family in the UK, and they started the blog as John's Jail Journal because obviously they didn't want to do it in my name. My mum knew about the guards killing the mentally ill prisoners and stuff. And First few months, nobody watched it. Nobody read it. I didn't think anyone would ever read it. The Guardian, they published excerpts about what I'd written about living with the cockroaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really live in harmony with the cockroaches. Mm. So in the beginning, I was trying to repel them, but then I learned all the techniques to get along with them.
Really?
And yeah. So I wrote at length about all this stuff, and in a humorous way, British humor. And the Guardian ran excerpts. On the front page had a big American cockroach, which became my trademark later on. And then the BBC, they did a story on it. And ever since, there's been non-stop interest. I feel really privileged that even now, 10 years more than after my release, people are still so fascinated and interested in my story. I think it was because it was such an extreme environment. If it had just been a run-of-the-mill prison experience, perhaps people wouldn't. But Sheriff Joe Arpaio certainly knew how to push you to the brink of suicidal insanity, which is what happened in my case. And I thank him for that, for giving me such a good story that people are still interested in. Yes.
So did anything change at Maricopa County as a result of you writing this blog?
So we brought attention to the jail. And when I say we, I'm not taking credit. There were numerous activists campaigning against Arpaio. There was a group called Mothers Against Arpaio, people whose sons and brothers had died in Arpaio's jail system. They would go to his talks. At one of his talks, Arpaio said, "No one's died in my jail." And this lady stood up and she said, "Well, my son died in your jail, so that's not true." And these were great women, really strong women. My mum and dad met them when they flew to Arizona. So there were a number of activist groups, and there were also a number of lawsuits and lawyers filing about these people who were getting murdered, and there was all this attention. And the maximum security jail was very old. That's why it was so cockroach infested. So all these factors combined to get that jail closed down. Mm. But Sheriff Joe Arpaio just opened a new high-tech house of horrors down the street. So a lot of that stuff was still going on until he got kicked out at the last election.
Wow. All right. Well, we're almost out of time, Shaun, but I've got one more question. How do you live with cockroaches? What do you mean when you say that?
Oh my goodness. How much time have we got?
We'll go as long as it takes.
All right. So let me just have a quick swig of water.
Okay.
My first year, I was in Towers Jail, medium security. And we went for a bail bond reduction hearing. And like I said, the prosecutor had it in for me. She sabotaged that hearing, and the judge doubled my bail from $750,000 cash only to $1.5 million. So if you get moved over 1.5 million, if you go over $1 million bond, you're automatically reclassified to max security. So I'm in transportation all day. It's 2 a.m. when I arrive at that cell. I go in, 2-man cell. That's an improvement. It was dark, but there was some light slanting in from the day room. All right, cool, 2-man cell. That's better, because all these cells were designed for one person. Mm-hmm. Because it's for-profit warehousing of human beings as commodities, trying to get as many people in these cells as possible. You're basically living in a toilet, a room the size of a toilet with other people. So it's a relief 2-man cell. But why is he asleep on the top bunk? And why is he shrouded like the mummy with his sheet around him? Because if you put your sheet around you in a building that is a concrete oven that's 50-degree heat out, the 120s, you are got all these skin infections and bed sores. And it looked like it spilled battery acid on my leg at one point. My arse, my butt, because you sat around a lot, you get these bed sores, and you get itchy, and you want to scratch yourself, but you've got to tell yourself not to scratch yourself, because if you're sweating every day in a concrete oven where there's no AC, there's a swamp cooler that doesn't work. The only time it works was when the county health inspector walked through the building, and as soon as the county health inspector left, it went back to the broken setting. And what I mean by that is we'd ask the guards why it isn't working, and they say it's broken. Every day it's broken, because they don't want to spend any money. They're using heat as a form of torture.
Mm-hmm.
When you're sweating every day at that rate, your outer layers of your skin turn soggy. You're itchy, you scratch yourself, and clumps of your own skin detach under your nails.
Oof.
One night, I'm on the bunk on my side. The hardest part is trying to sleep in a pool of sweat with all the itchiness going on your skin. And one night, I managed to sleep on my side, and my ear must have filled up with sweat. Because when I moved, it all just spilt over my face, like someone was touching me. Just freaked me out. I woke up. So I'm thinking, how is he sleeping like that with the sheet wrapped around him? What's going on in here? So I'm walking in the cell, and something drops off the ceiling and bounces off my shoulder. I'm like, WTF was that? I'm looking at the wall and the ceiling, and there's like this movement, swirl. The wall is like swirling. I've done a lot of drugs in my time, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm tripping. I've been up in transportation. I've not slept. I must be tripping. So I put my face right up to the wall, and it was covered in insects, American cockroaches, the size of an almond, with their antennae sticking out.
Yeah.
Skinny ones. They move really fast. So then I look at where I'm going to be sleeping on the bottom bunk. And there's a bracket right there holding the bunk to the wall. And there's a hole next to it. And they're just pouring out of the bracket onto this bunk. Oh my God, how am I going to sleep on this thing now? That's why he was asleep on the top bunk.
Yeah.
So then I said to myself, all right, I'm just going to have to wrap the sheet around me, cocoon myself like the mummy, leave a breathing hole. So I tried that. And then my skin irritation was so much, I couldn't sleep. It just traps the heat to your body. So then I just threw the sheet off me, let them crawl on me, couldn't sleep. So they don't bite, fortunately. They tickle your feet, your legs. To this day, if anyone tickles my hands, I flinch. I woke up so many nights from tickling my hands. They get on your face, mouth, nose. The favorite place of all is going in your ears to eat your earwax. It's like honey to them. I ripped a little piece of towel. This is how I learned this. I ripped a little piece of towel into a face cloth. So I washed my face. And then I'd try and get the earwax out. I'd hang the cloth to dry underneath the combination sink toilet thing. And the cockroaches would get where I'd got the wax out, and they'd just be pulsing on the wax, just trying to suck all this wax off this cloth. So that's how I learned that. I had a neighbor at that point who was asthmatic, wakes up one morning out of breath, grabs his inhaler, shoots a live cockroach inside himself. Starts freaking out, saying he can feel it moving around.
Oh, God.
Throws up his stomach contents, and somehow this is stuck inside him, and it won't even come out. Now, even in the daytime, there was so many. I mean, at night, it was just a tidal wave. As soon as lights went out, lockdown, 8 p.m. All the prisoners go back to the cells. Doors are closed. Lights out, 10 p.m. They knew. The cockroaches knew when the lights were about to go out. This was like a regular thing. They'd line up in the cracks in the walls in this old building, doing the movement like this. And then as soon as the lights went out, they would just flood the room. Now, you have a plastic bag of commissary. You can buy so many items from the inmate store. And you had to try and get a plastic bag and tie it off they would eat through that paper, and they would eat through your whatever you had, like a bit of peanut butter or some extra nuts. That's what I was living off. It was like, so for me, a Snickers bar was a meal.
Mm-hmm.
My $20 that I could spend a week sent in by my family. I managed to lose 2 stone, 28 pounds over the 26 months I was in there, but because the food was just inedible. But the Snickers bar was like a meal for me. Some people think that sounds luxurious. You had a Snickers in jail. No, it was like a meal. And I had to defend myself against murderers and rapists who want to try and take that Snickers bar from me.
Mm-hmm.
That's they're whole other stories. Back to the roaches. So in the beginning, you are at war with them. And I was allowed so much Amur Fresh toothpaste. Don't know where Sheriff Joe Pye got the Amur Fresh toothpaste from, but years later, it came out that it had some antifreeze ingredient in it from China.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so we've been using this toxic Amerifresh toothpaste. So I've been stocking up on the Amerifresh. I decided to try and seal all the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, the cell smelled so good. It was like pure mint. And it did stop them from getting into an extent, but they would run under the cell door.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there came a point where I got moved to the cell. I used up all my Amerifresh toothpaste. I'm just kicking back, reading. I tried to turn it into an educational opportunity. I read over 1,000 books in just under 6 years, a lot of philosophy and psychology.
Mm-hmm.
That enabled me to go inside myself, address the root causes of what I'd done, and reading and writing became the lifeblood of my rehabilitation. So I'm just relaxing in the cell, and next thing, there's an instruction over the intercom. Atwood, roll your shit up. You're going to like D-pod, cell, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, oh, shit, I've used all my toothpaste. Let's hope it's a part of the jail that doesn't have any roaches. I got over there and it was one of the most roach-infested parts of the jail. Mm. And I went so many nights without sleep because you can't sleep when they're just crawling on you all the time. I started to hallucinate and hear voices, and I put a medical request in, and they had to give me medication to force me to go to sleep. Mm. And the medication clouded my mind, and I couldn't read and write properly. There was these side effects. And my sister sent me a book called Yoga Made Easy, and she insisted that I try it. And I tried the meditation part. So I've got these black and white striped trousers. I've got these pink socks. I got a pile of books near the wall with all these cockroaches on the wall. I pile the books up near the wall. I'm in the cross-legged position. I know the roaches are going to crawl on me, but they'll just be on the socks and they'll be on the trousers. They won't go on my skin, which will be too much to... And I sat there meditating for hours on end every night. And at first, I couldn't stand it. You concentrate on the breathing, your thoughts are going to stop, all this nonsense. A fast-paced person, how is my thoughts going to ever stop? This is ridiculous. But over time, I started to go on... not only did my thoughts stop, I went on visual journeys. And I got to see my loved ones and my girlfriend on these visual journeys. And it got my stress level so down that I ended up getting off the medication. Good. So meditation, holistically, is brilliant. And it causes the brain to release those anti-anxiety chemicals. There's an internal pharmacy in the brain. Mm-hmm. And holistically, you can release those anti-anxiety chemicals and get your stress level down. If I can do it, a point in my life where I'm facing 200 years and I'm living with cockroaches, I'm contemplating slashing my wrists and bleeding out because the conditions are such. I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life like that. If I could do it, anybody watching this, please let that be your yardstick. If you've not gone through something tough in life, let my story, let my living with the roaches be your yardstick. So now I come out the other side of this now, and I'm off the medication. My stress level's down. I'm on my program. I'm reading and writing. I'm doing my yoga. You know, I'm upside down like a bat in headstand, lotus, Guard comes along at 2 a.m, shines his light on me. Damn, Atwood, what are you doing here? I'm like, yoga. Thought I was crazy. So I make peace with the cockroaches, and I start to tune into their behavior. If you're gonna live with someone, if they're gonna be your cellmate permanently, there's nothing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You got to live in harmony with them. And I noticed they communicate through chemical signals. So if prisoners start, slamming them with the shower sandals and trying to splat them and things like that, they release a signal, and then these warrior ones come running under your door, like, we're gonna get you.
Wow.
You see like white ones, like albino ones. I don't know if they were shedding their skins or what. You see pregnant ones. They have a little sack. It looks like a piece of a worm. And it's got eggs in it.
Mm-hmm.
And heaven help you if they lay that sack below your bunk. Often I would find the little sack attached to a book.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I'd throw it in the toilet and get rid of it. Because if that thing bursts open, all the little babies come out. Oof. They just get absolutely everywhere. And I understand why people say they would survive a nuclear war, because they are very sneaky. People would splat them, and they would look so flat and dead. And I'd be reading a book. I'd be looking over. And 2 hours later, it's gone. It's reformed and it's walked off.
Wow.
When you put them in the toilet, they pretend like they've been drowned. They go like this. They look all shriveled and drowned and dead. But the sneaky little are just holding oxygen to themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. Prisoners were doing cockroach races. Can you remember? You got to accept your predicament.
Yeah.
I put myself in that situation. I tried to accept my karma cheerfully. I understand people around the world right now feel locked down. You didn't ask for this. You didn't commit crimes like I did. But it's real. It's in your face. You got to get on with it. You got to make the most of it. Read those books that you bought, that you've never had time to read. You want to learn a language, you've always told yourself, get on with it. All the things you've shelved in life, you now have this massive opportunity to do. I had to tell myself at one point, do I want to be wild in here and take drugs like these guys, injecting heroin and crystal meth? No, I'm not the wild, crazy person I thought I was. It was a very humbling experience. These guys in here are wilder and crazier 10 times more than me. And rather than do that, I can turn this into the educational opportunity of a lifetime. And that's why I set the goal to read those books, and read over 1,000 books. I read 268 books in 2006. I told my sister, she said, you lucky bugger. People have jobs, relationships, kids, responsibilities. No one could ever possibly read that many books in a year unless you're like a mad monk in a cave. And I felt blessed to have that situation. So people around the world watching this right now, you are blessed. You may not think it, and it took me a while to understand it, but you are blessed to have this situation, to do things that you've always wanted to do that have been shelved, and to reflect on your life, and to have time for introspection. And I just wish you all positive vibes out there right now from my house with the squirrels.
Shaun, I love your attitude. I love what you did with the circumstances that you put yourself in, and thank you so much for joining us today. I've had a great time talking to you, and I hope that you can come back and we can have a conversation again in the future.
I'd love to, Zach. It's been a blast. There's just so many stories still untold.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, guys. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's Red Pill. Just one more thing. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has taken the time to support this channel. If you'd like to see some ways that you can support the channel, you can always check the show notes in the pinned comment of this video below. Whether you like, whether you share, whether you make sure that your notifications are on, any way that you support this channel means so much to me. I could not be doing this without you, and I could not do it without your help. Without people like you, this channel would not exist, so thank you so much to everyone for all of their many means of support. Don't forget to check out the merchandise store that is also in the pinned comment, and I will see you guys next time.